Hi, this is Jay Richards. We're here at the COSM Technology Summit 2023 in Bellevue, Washington. And I've just heard an amazing talk by Microsoft Director working on artificial intelligence, Juan Lavista. Juan, thanks for joining me.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Well, so your talk was really good and inspirational here at the end of the first day of the COSM conference because you talked about the use of AI for good. And you started by talking about the sort of perceived downside. The smartest people in the world in the early 21st century have been deployed to figure out how to get people to click on ads, right? Which you think we all sort of imagine, feel a little depressed about that. But you pointed out that actually these are transferable skills, working with these large language models and figuring out, systems to make predictions can be used for all sorts of good things. And you turn to the things very hopefully that you think AI will be used for in the future. And you talked in particular about the use of predictive models in medicine. I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we've been working in many of these projects, particularly related to medical imaging, meaning that areas where you have doctors making decisions based on images, either fundus images from a child, or a CT scan from a patient, or X-rays. These are places where, in many ways, humans have been learned through the years to detect and to try patients based on the information that is stored in these images. In many ways, you have humans trying to do what machine learning model is really good, that is pattern recognition.
Yes.
So what we are doing is working with using computer vision techniques on top of those images to do diagnostics and prediction, basically.
So using computers to do what they do well, in this case, massive scale. So looking perhaps, I assume, at millions of images as opposed to hundreds or thousands.
Yeah, so is the ability for these models to try to find patterns on what differentiate patients. Whether a patient, for example, we know that a patient has a particular cancer. Based on that image, can the model learn, basically? Can the model learn to differentiate those patients that have cancer versus those that don't? And do what these models are really good, that is this pattern recognition. The output of these models needs to be something that is interpretable, meaning that you cannot just output saying this patient has cancer. Like a good model will provide a probability, correct? Like it's a probabilistic problem. It will not be true or false. It's like there's 95% chances that this patient has cancer, for example, correct? And not only that, the model, the output should also indicate, let's say, for example, in a CT scan, it will pinpoint, it will draw the areas where the model thinks that are increasing probability and those that are reducing probability. With this information, then a doctor looking at these can make an informed decision because the doctor has full knowledge about that patient.
Yes.
Correct? The AI model does not have full knowledge. What the AI model knows is mainly what it's seeing from the CT scan. With this information and with this probability, then a doctor can make a better informed decision.
I mean, so it's this kind of perfectly complementary relationship because I know in talking about these issues for years that many people, when they hear this, they think, well, this is going to put all doctors out of work. You actually turned that around. You said, well, in fact, for certain kinds of diseases, in fact, there's very few doctors compared to the number of people in the world that actually need to be treated.
We certainly need many more doctors, and there's no way that we will not need doctors.
Yes.
What we need is to augment these doctors. In many diseases, there's not enough doctors. Right? Like I mentioned in the talk, there's only 200,000 ophthalmologists in the world. And like even diabetic retinopathy, that is another disease that I didn't talk. You have 450 million people in the world that suffer from diabetes. All of them need to go through a screening of diabetic retinopathy. And a third of those will develop diabetic retinopathy. And if they're not treated, some of them will become blind. It's physically impossible for these 200,000 ophthalmologists to diagnose diabetic retinopathy. Those are examples and problems where AI needs to augment the capabilities that these doctors have to help do diagnostics.
Yeah, so that in the case you gave of a retinopathy of prematurity. So this disease that you said is exploding in the global south in some ways for a good reason because more premature babies are surviving. But there's this extreme need, I take it, for sort of early diagnosis and treatment.
Yes, again, the babies there's health, thanks to improvements in medicine and healthcare, these babies now, the very small premature babies are surviving, and that is resulting in an increase in ROP cases. And again, we only have likely around 10,000 pediatric ophthalmologists in the world.
On the planet.
On the planet.
Wow.
And you have millions of children are born every year that are premature babies. It's impossible for these. And again, even if you have 10,000, they're not even equally distributed around the world. There are countries that do not have pediatric ophthalmologists.
Okay.
So again, this type of technology can certainly help diagnosis, because if you can diagnose ROP, and then it's completely, the blindness through ROP is completely preventable.
Wow.
So, and it's like you just need to do a surgery, and that's completely preventable. But the problem is diagnostics.
Okay. And so solve that part. You're still going to need surgeons for the surgery.
Yes, exactly.
But it absolutely solves this diagnosis.
And that is the bottleneck, right?
Okay. I mean, this is a really, really exciting prospect. I mean, so do you imagine a scenario in the future in 15 or 20 years where the human doctor is actually completely out of the picture, or do you think that's a sort of a natural, intrinsic part of the process?
No, you will always need doctors. What we want is these doctors to be able to have and treat more patients, and like 4 billion people in the world do not have access to healthcare today. Half of the world do not have access to healthcare. And it's almost impossible to think that we will ever have enough doctors for the whole world. What we want is for the doctors that we have, make them significantly more productive. Make sure that they only focus on what these doctors are really good at, and help these AI models help them, basically.
So the doctors could focus on their true comparative advantage, the things that humans can do and do uniquely, and supplement that with machines. That's a sort of exciting prospect. So if you were to think out 10 years from now, what's the sort of most hopeful thing you think we might see in this area?
I think, again, we have, like I mentioned in the early slides, this over 5 million children still die every year from infant mortality of completely preventable death. You have 1.6 billion people in the world that live with disabilities. What I want in the world in the next 10 years is use this technology, make sure that the world uses this type of technology to help reduce infant mortality, reduce improve early detection of things like cancer, improve the life of these 1.6 billion people that live with a disability. Like the technology has already shown that can do that.
Yes.
What we need is we need to work in society as a whole to make sure that we embrace this technology and improve it and use it for those cases.
I mean, it's a wonderful message, and you said that at the end, that of course any technology we've developed can be used as a weapon, or it can be used as a tool for good. And so, and in this case, it may just be that it's being used for something that's not really a weapon, maybe just to help make predictions about ad clicks. But the application to these very exciting developments, I think, are something that should be encouraging to us all at this moment when we are mostly worried about these things.
Yes.
Juan Lavista, thanks so much for joining me for a few minutes.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
And thank you so much for joining us. We're here at COSM 2023.